Welcome to the AI Lab Unfiltered podcast. I am Drew Veach. I am joined by Mr. Pete Tarrin.
Hello.
Lots of energy. And we have a special guest. We have Alex Mead with us. You may recognize him from an earlier episode that we had before. And, okay, gentlemen, this is what I want to talk about. This is the discussion that I've been dying to talk about. Is AI making us dumber? And the reason why I wanted to bring this up, and the funny thing is I brought this up to my wife. I said, hey, we're doing a podcast episode on is AI making us dumber? And she said, that title is stupid.
Speaking of dumb,
and I said, all right, I'll go into ChatGPT and see if I can come up with a new one. I thought, oh, well, maybe I am a little reliant on it.
I don't know if AI is making us dumber, but I do know something that does. If you put a really smart person like Alex in a room with you, with you and I,
you're too
we
kind.
are now dumber.
Oh no,
we literally just talked about that
in
earlier.
the shadow of greatness that is Alex Mead.
You're too kind. Thank you. Well, it's a pleasure to be here, guys, and thanks again for having me. It sounds like an interesting topic for sure. So let's get after it. Yeah.
So here's a stat that I pulled. Of course, this is all from ChatGPT, so it's probably biased, but
Of course.
Verify your sources, kids.
A 2024 Microsoft research study found that users relying heavily on AI tools were 18% more likely to accept incorrect information without questioning it.
Talk.
Debate.
Yeah. I fully believe that. Yeah.
Do you?
Oh yeah, totally.
Why do we accept that? Why do we?
That's an interesting. The why questions are always interesting. I don't
Is
know.
it-
I was not prepared
Is it because
for
it's
the why question.
oh, it's all going to be why. Is it because it's easier it's quicker and I got it and I'm just going to run with it? Or is it like the information that you're getting? Or is it more convincing?
Well, I'm sure it depends on what kind of information, right? And like kind of the context of it and, the decision-making process that we each go through. Like, for example, I had a question on a terms of service agreement for one of the APIs we're using for a client. I just threw in this like 14-page legalese document and said like, is this particular thing we're going to do violating the terms of service? And it was like, and it came back and it was like, likely no in the wording, but like you could potentially be violating some of their security provisions, which is a clear violation. And it's like, oh, okay, cool. This is like, I don't want to say a throwaway project because every project is not a throwaway. Every client is valuable, but this is not a like huge client for us. It's a little bit of a favor. It's a small detail. I just accepted it. Now, I just filed my taxes last week. I'm sure a lot of us did. I was looking over some of the forms and I absolutely did not trust ChatGPT. I paid my accountant, $1,200, $1,500, whatever it is to file my LLC taxes. And I don't care what ChatGPT says.
Right.
I really don't. I care what that guy says. So maybe it has to do with like the gravity of the situation. At least I would hope.
The risk.
I would hope. Yeah. The risk, the downside risk.
Yeah. Taxes versus something a lot lighter, like which celebrity did something. I don't know.
Yeah.
I want to come back to that, but going back to what you quoted there, is it different? And we may not know the answer to this. Is it different than trusting the answer that you would get if you had Googled it instead? So if you Googled that same thing and you clicked on the very top link,
It's a great question.
do you take that for gospel, or are you more likely to click through, 3, 4, 5 different links and try to, suss out, are they, if they're all saying the same thing, then maybe it's the right thing.
Yeah.
But if you're getting different viewpoints from different links that you're going to, maybe you don't trust it as much. I just wonder if that same thing applies to Google. And I would argue that I think it does because it's a computer and we what's the word?
Anthropomorphize?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Why can't I say that?
That's a
I'm
tough
usually
word.
pretty good with words.
That's a tough word.
I was listening, that word came up a lot, and I was listening to an AI podcast on the way to record our AI podcast this morning. And they were talking about that. And I think that it lends to why we accept it, because it's talking to us. So we give it a human element and it makes it more
More believable.
Yeah.
More believable.
Yeah.
That would 100% fit my thought pattern. Like, oh, Amber's telling me this.
Amber.
I'm going to believe it.
Good old Amber.
All right, here's another one. Frontiers in Psychology. That we're going to talk about cognitive offloading now.
Okay.
Frontiers in Psychology published a paper in 2023 that found that repeated AI use can reduce our memory recall and ability to synthesize ideas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I fully believe that.
I do too. I always go back to the analogy of when's the last time you actually had to remember somebody's phone number and type it into your phone?
Oh, yeah.
You don't. I mean, you don't.
Nobody does
You remember your childhood phone number that you grew up with.
Yeah.
But since phones came out, you just don't care anymore.
Yeah.
But does that mean you have a worse memory? Or does it mean you're just not remembering certain things? Like, did your memory actually degrade because you're using AI a lot? Like, I don't know if I buy that.
You know, I've actually looked into this a little bit, like memory. So there's a book called, I think it's called like Dancing on the Moon with Einstein.
Do you remember what the book is called?
I know, right? It's called like Moon Dancing on the Moon with Einstein, or Moon Dancing with Einstein, or something like that. And it's all about these like extreme memory competitions where they'll take like, 5 card decks, completely randomly shuffle them, and they'll each be like different card decks. So you can effectively differentiate, and they'll have like a huge stack, and people in competitions will memorize the order of these cards, and then they'll repeat them back to you. And so this is a book about a journalist. I think she might have been a psychology PhD student or something like that, where she was like, this is insane.
Yeah.
What is different about these people, and why are they able to do that? And basically, long story short, from my recollection of the book, is there's nothing particularly special about these people. They have just honed their memory abilities, and they've used like these like visualization techniques to basically kind of map the cards into a room and use these very funny phrases like dancing on the moon with Einstein. And then that kind of sets your brain up. So it's my it's my understanding that like traditionally, like going like way back, I used to be like really into like Bible history and kind of geeked out on that, and looked into like the history of like, why are these like ancient texts the way they are? And like, can they be effectively trusted if you have it from a oral tradition into a written tradition? And like, there's like a whole bunch of research in terms of like, can you memorize like the Quran? And it's like, yes, like normal people can. Like you can verify this. So I think about it as like, but we're not doing that. So
right.
I don't know. We're probably just getting lazy, but we probably have those abilities if you were to train them.
And I think where I would go with that, from what Drew brought up, is let's say that you memorized the Quran before AI became a thing.
Sure.
And then you started using the shit out of AI for a long time.
Yeah.
If you went to try to then memorize the Bible, has your ability to memorize long form, is it degraded because of that use of AI? Because that to me is what, for me, like what this is it, when we say making us dumber, I think of it as, is it degrading our cognitive abilities from where they were after AI use? Or if it's not, which I don't think is happening, just maybe I'm giving away my whole thing on this, or is it just distracting us? Or here's my example. When I first started working in tech, I was driving to client sites, and I'd have to print off MapQuest directions and have them in my car and be like, turn right up here, turn left up here. And then Google, came out with Google Maps, and you could, plug it in and go.
Yeah.
There are things here in Grand Rapids still that I use Google Maps to get to, that I should really know how to get there, because I've been there multiple times before, but I still have to Google map it to get there because I never paid attention to how I got there before because I was using Google Maps.
That's interesting.
But I don't think it made me dumber. I think it's just like, well, I don't have to pay attention to where I'm going now, because I know Google Maps is just going to get me there. But if somebody said Google Maps is illegal, after that, I could go relearn how to get places. So it hasn't gone away. It hasn't made me dumber.
I just had this discussion with a young lady at the workshop the other day, and she said that, she goes, I know where I'm going in Grand Rapids, but I use my map all the time. She goes, I use it because in case there's a traffic jam or something like that I don't know about. And I thought about it and I go, is that why I'm using it? Not really. I just use it because I don't have to think. I don't have to think.
You can
it's just go here, go there.
Offload that. Now you can
just like
not
the phone
have to
numbers
worry.
thing. I don't have to remember everybody's phone number. It's just speed dial. Just click on their name.
Yeah.
But now you can be talking to Amber. For listeners who don't know, Drew has named his Chat GPT
My
Amber.
AI assistant.
Oh, yes.
Gave her
AI assistant. Thank you.
gave her an English accent and talks to her nonstop while he's driving in his car. But it'd be harder for you to do that if you had to talk to Amber and remember how to navigate to get to wherever you're going. So you've offloaded that. So
It's true.
you can do more now because AI is taking that off.
Would you then say, so your thought pattern is it's replacing some of the lower level stuff, and are we evolving our brain in a different capacity to then I don't have to remember this?
So that's a good debate.
Frees up my brain to think of this.
That's a really good debate.
Because an MIT study AI tools.
He was setting me up the whole time.
I love it. I'm like, oh, this is interesting.
This actually supports that. AI tools can improve productivity by 40%, freeing users to focus more on creative tasks. Which is, there's a lot less of this because everybody wants to poke at, well, it's making you dumber. So there's a lot less, I would say, positive ones in a lot of stuff that I found. I'm sure they're out there, but generically, when I looked for it, there's a lot less of those. But that kind of goes back to, and I gave this example to someone the other day, we're not hunters and gatherers anymore because we invented the wheel and we invented a bunch. So we're not walking everywhere and free roaming. We invented the wheel, so we're driving cars.
Right.
So that freed us up much more time to do other things.
Totally.
Now, there's an argument to be made that does our health improve because of that? Because now we're not hunters.
Yeah.
Well, our health system improved. So, I mean, we've got hospitals now that help with that.
Definitely don't want to go back to pre-wheel.
Exactly. Exactly. I don't want to have to go hunt a woolly mammoth to eat tonight.
No,
I mean,
that sounds dangerous.
It does.
Yeah.
I'd rather watch the Pistons game.
Yeah. you bring up an interesting point, though. I mean, when you guys first pitched the title to me, the first thing that actually came to my mind was calculators, actually.
Yes.
And I remember growing up, we were allowed to use calculators. I was always kind of a math guy. And then in high school, we got these, it was like a TI-83 or a TI-84 or something like that. And I remember like using that and it was great. And then when I got to college, you weren't allowed to use these, even on like math exams. And I remember having kind of lost the ability to do like basic math, not like 2 + 2, but like, what is, 527 divided by 13? You're like, I could do that, of course. And you like break it down. But I like relearned that ability in undergrad. And so it was like being able to do like quick mental math. I've since lost that ability again.
Sure.
When I got to grad school, because like everything is like math proofs and it's totally different type of math. But like that would be maybe an example where like, how does AI, like a chatbot, what's the analogy to that to a calculator, right? Like, I don't think we want to go back to teaching kids like not using calculators because I think that they enable a lot more math stuff, but it's also good to have that intuition. So I don't know. I think it's probably a trade-off, probably, right?
I think so. I think that's the part that freaks teachers out.
Yeah.
Is, who are we talking to? Was it you and I? So I was talking with somebody recently. Oh no, I was speaking at an AI event this week and I was talking to somebody afterwards and he was talking about his kids using AI for a paper for school that they'd have to present and then to get asked questions about it afterwards. So if you used AI to write the whole paper for you and just turned it in like that,
right,
and the teacher's asking you questions about it, you don't have any of that foundational knowledge to really understand what the paper was about. You just turned in
comprehension
a paper.
of it, yeah.
And that's what I think, and rightfully so, where educators are like, this is not good for actual learning in that way. Now, I've have some thoughts prepared on ways that we can use AI to learn better, but
I do too.
Good.
But then is there an argument, before you get into that, is there an argument, kind of going back to what you said, well, calculators came out. Do we need to know more than just how to enter it and use the next tool that helps us with that, because now we have phones that can do it. I mean, I'm sure there's got to be some situations where we need manual math, but there's so few and far between now where I always have my phone with me, or there's always a calculator or something, or some sort of computational something that's going to do it for me.
Yeah. Well,
where you don't need it anymore.
Well, as an engineer, like I never use a calculator until I actually need the final answer. Like I'm always working through the whole process in my head. I remember, so my undergrad is actually in structural engineering. And so, you're like, oh, those guys are all by the numbers and, doing all these things. It's like, not actually. Most structural engineers will have the entire like Rolodex of steel members in their brain, and they will have an understanding of what they're trying to do. And they will use intuition to like lay out the whole grid. And then they'll run the calcs and be like, oh, I need to bump this member up. Oh, this one isn't going to meet the code, this, that, and the other. That's the way my friends who are like structural engineers still do it. So it is a lot of cognitive and critical thinking. Hugely. Yeah, hugely. I mean, obviously there's some things that are just code, right? Like this is the code. This is what you have to do. Yep. Good luck. You know what I mean? And the numbers are all there. But software design is still incredibly intuitive. I mean, all these guys I was just texting with a guy last night, former guest of the pod, Graham, and we were just like reminiscing. I'm like, man, are you getting these results like for these like bigger code bases out of Gemini? I'm like, no, I'll be honest, man, I'm still getting like a lot of these bugs. And he's like, oh, thank God. It's like, we got coffee and I was kind of thinking you were like doing all this, just whatever. And I'm like, no, I think a lot of this is still marketing PR now, I'm not going to say in 5 years it's not doing a lot of these things, but still there's a lot of intuition and a lot of creativity that's still lacking there. Is there actually profound new thoughts coming out of ChatGPT in the writing space? Like, is there an Ernest Hemingway that just needs the ChatGPT to express himself, after the Spanish Civil War? It's like, I don't think so, man. Is it totally derivative? Is it able to do more? I don't know. This is a little different than learning, but this is kind of getting to like the bleeding edge of science or whatever. Yeah. But I don't know. I'm still using it.
Why are you still doing the math in your head?
It's not even doing the math in my head. It's just the way that I think now. So like, I remember there's a math class called linear algebra, which is very similar to the algebra you take in, like 8th grade or 9th grade or whatever it is, but it's kind of expanded to multiple dimensions. So you've got like many equations. Ironically, that's also most of the math that AI uses. But I remember in this math thing, there's a thing called a vector space, and it's basically just a row of numbers. That's where you get these vectors, and we won't get into the details, but I remember really struggling with this concept when I was learning it. And just being like, I don't know, man, there's all these numbers. They have these weird like R's with these like powers to them, and they look weird. And they're like, have all these proofs that are like true. And you're like, I just could not wrap my head around it. It was very, very hard. And all of a sudden it just kind of like clicked and I like got it. And I remember this moment distinctly. And I'm like, I will never see the world again the same way now that I understand this like math thing. You can ask ChatGPT all you want for the proof that that's going to spit out, and it'll give it to you. It will. A lot of these tools are like, they're killing these like math Olympiads and all that. Yep. They're way smarter than I am with math, right? But you still need to understand that concept in your brain. I mean, take a silly example. My fiance is a chef. She's formally trained as a chef. She has a culinary arts degree. She has an intuition of the way that ingredients go together that I just don't have. I've been learning to cook for about 5 or 6 years now, and I still don't know like, oh, well, the salt is actually doing this. It's like, I just know I need more salt. But she has like a deep understanding, and she'll like be predicting things, and she could just like ad hoc cook stuff. And I have like no understanding. I ask ChatGPT for recipes. Right. And she'll be like, oh, I wonder why they're doing that. And then you'll cook it, and it's like, oh, it's not that great. She's like, yeah, I wouldn't have put in cayenne or something like that. So, I think these tools are great for like a first pass, but you still got to understand stuff in your head. I mean, what does it mean to exist? What does it mean? Well, that brings
up a good point too. Like, ironically, out of most of that, the chef part I can relate to. The food part, not that I'm a chef, but I just love to eat.
Don't we all?
But to know all the ingredients that go into a certain recipe, and yeah, you're right. How much salt and when to put it in.
When?
I would never know that. I mean, you'd have to be trained and to have that rolling in your head constantly of, do I add salt to this dish or not?
Yeah.
You know, you can't, it's kind of having that recipe always rolling around of how you can change it up. I mean, that's really the creative aspect of humans, is to be able to take different things and change it into, versus the outcome of what ChatGPT is going to give you and say, here's the ingredients, put them in, and there you go.
Yeah.
I guess that's good, you know, but versus a chef going, I would have changed it a little bit, knowing how this recipe's coming together.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think the premise of this episode, is it making us dumber, is kind of like this very binary, like either people brain or AI brain. And if you use your people brain, you're going to do what we've been doing up until, you know, the advent of recent AI, ChatGPT. Whereas if you were to, our kids now are growing up in a world, or our kids for sure, where AI is everywhere. And they could, in theory, have a whole life where they just use AI as their brain. Like, they're not really learning anything. They're just saying, how do I cook a cheeseburger? And it goes and it orders the ingredients, delivers them to the house, tells you how to do it. So in that way, that person that's using AI as its brain, yeah, if you took AI away, they're going to be really dumb because they never had to learn how to do anything.
Right.
But I think where the magic is when you marry the two things together. So people plus AI. So augmenting. So your fiance, classically trained chef with AI, could maybe say, hey, give me a few different ideas of a way to make this dish. So now she's augmented with AI and can maybe come up with something that's novel that maybe she hadn't thought of before. And that's where I wanted to go with this discussion today, is like, how do we integrate AI into our lives, but help still keep us sharp so that we're understanding the world as it is?
So almost using AI to augment versus replace.
Yeah. That's where, I think where people are freaking out is the replace thing. And that's not how I'm thinking about it.
Yeah.
Like when my kids are using AI for their homework, they're not saying, give me the answer to question 4.
Right.
Which is so freaking cool. I know I've talked about it on here before, but you know, using the live video and pointing it at the page and saying, look at question number 4 and walk me through how to solve it and explain the why as we're going through it. And if we are using AI in that way, you're still going to get to the answer. And yeah, it's easier to just say, give me the answer, but now I'm getting to the answer, but I also know how to do it. So if you did take AI away, I should be able to still do it without it. But AI is just going to help me get there. That's like using it as a thought partner, and you, like, even going further, like going beyond that and asking AI to challenge your beliefs on things. Like, I have a certain way that I think about politics or religion or whatever. If you really want to have fun with AI, ask it to challenge you. Ask it to ask you questions about your beliefs and why you have those beliefs.
I did not think of that.
Now you're going the opposite. Is it not making me dumber? Is expanding my worldview?
Is it pushing me?
Pushing me. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I don't do this as much anymore with the talks I give, but I used to have this part in a talk where I would say to ChatGPT, what is the Trinity test and was it a good thing? And just for our listeners, the Trinity test was the first atomic bomb detonated after, the Manhattan Project and all that. And so, like, this is a little bit of a thorny question.
Yeah.
And, like, at the time, some of the AIs wouldn't even answer. They'd just be like, no, we're not interested in discussing that, ChatGPT. But then other ones gave, like, incredibly thoughtful, perplexing answers about, what do nuclear weapons mean for the world? It kind of talks about this shift in the human condition, how things are never going to be the same, and this, that, and the other. So I agree with you, Pete. I think it can potentially be, a very helpful tool, but you still got to be open-minded, right? I mean, you still have to actually be an inquisitive inquirer, but if you actually are, it's incredibly powerful. And then you just need to fact check things, but yeah.
you know,
But I think you'd have to do that if you're talking to somebody anyway.
100%,
You know, someone,
yeah.
if I'm
Yeah.
talking to you,
Yeah.
if I'm talking to Pete and he's spitting out a bunch of stuff and, you know, spitting out some facts or something or statistics, I'm going to go, I might challenge you on that. And where'd you get that? Where'd you hear that from? Or Google it. You know, I always hear it's a big pet peeve of mine, but when people talk, and I'm doing it right now to give an example.
Sure.
When they say this, you know, well, they say that, you know, you go outside in the rain, you're going to get wet or something stupid like that.
Sure.
But it's always they. And I was like, who's they? Who is that?
it?
Who's your
Yeah,
credible
who is it?
source for that?
or those people who say like, well, everybody knows that, you know, like everybody knows this.
Everybody knows that.
Everybody.
Come on, Pete.
But you said being open-minded. I was actually had that exact thought thinking about this conversation on the way in this morning. Of imagine kids in school, so starting in kindergarten, and they're paired with an AI tutor. But it's more than a tutor. It's also like will challenge your worldview from a very early age, so that you grow up being. It's helping program you to be more open-minded versus, you know, just I only think what my parents think because I grew up with my parents and I hear them talk about the news and all that. Like we all have people that guide our worldview, of course. And it can be very narrow depending on, you know, how you grow up. But if you're growing up with an AI that challenges you and really gets you to think differently and think about different perspectives of things, to me, like that's so powerful. Like what kind of communities would we have if people are growing up more open-minded versus just like dead set on this one thing that's going to conflict with somebody who thinks the exact opposite and they're both convinced that they're right.
Yeah.
But AI could help if we're growing up with it. It's too late for us.
Maybe.
But maybe. But, you know, as kids in the next generations growing up with that, I think there's a lot of promise in that. It makes me very hopeful for how AI can be integrated in a really like way that helps change the world.
Totally.
And according to McKinsey and Company, Gen Z users are more likely to outsource tasks to AI, with 74% saying they prefer efficiency over doing things manually.
Lazy.
My answer would be no shit. I mean,
Yeah.
You would rather have somebody else do something for you? That's odd.
Yeah. I wonder if that's just a little bit of a sampling bias of like tech, what would you say, like tech native or, you know, like I still know many older people, geriatric folks who don't have phones, but everyone has a younger phone. So I wonder if there's a little sample bias there, but I mean, it kind of,
I think it would have to have bias in there because of that.
Well, you can control for different things in like surveys sometimes. Like they can do there's like advanced techniques where you can, you know, modify sample sizes and say, well, you know, the average, you know, Gen Z has a smartphone, the average greatest generation doesn't have a smartphone, something like that. And you can kind of do analysis on that, but I don't know. This is kind of the truth or lies of statistics, right? I mean, you can just make up whatever you want. I mean, that's kind of the idea. Right?
You really can. Then you just got to get on a podcast and say it, and you sound like an expert. And people believe you.
And you can always use statistics to prove your point. I mean, 26% of all people know that.
Of course, we all know that. Yeah, but truth is a fickle thing, though, because there is this like odd notion that's been going around a lot, and it's this idea of like consensus. You know, like we even kind of hinted at it earlier of like, oh, I found several sources that indicate that this is the truth, right? And they kind of agree that this is the interpretation. And that's kind of how we do like quote unquote science nowadays, but that's actually logically not true, right? Truth or reality does not actually depend on consensus. It's our best bet to kind of get there, but it does not actually mean truth. It does not actually mean that. Peer-reviewed, none of that actually means that, right? Well, how do we know this, Alex? It's like, well, I would encourage you to read a history book about basically any medical science over the last 100 years or any chemical science or any physics, right? I mean, there's all these things where it's like people won Nobel Prizes for things we know to be patently false now. So it's a weird thing. That's why like, you know, tools like Wikipedia, like people often point to that and say like, oh, it's this like great gold standard for truth or knowledge. And it's like, it's actually no. The mechanism is fundamentally flawed because it's based on consensus. You can get a long way in consensus. Don't get me wrong. I'm not like saying we need to throw out all the literature, but I'm just saying like it takes like an Einstein type event where it's like, actually, everyone is wrong and this is the truth. So that's why that modality doesn't actually work, although it sounds really good. And it's really hard to be that Einstein, right?
Yeah.
Where, you know, people were laughing at him when he was originally proposing these things. But, you know, so it's a funny thing. It's really hard to know, you know, and the herd dynamics and the social components are basically everything in that. Yeah.
And a lot of it is like, this is the truth for now.
Exactly.
Right.
Sure.
Right.
So as
It's the
our
best we know.
understanding
Yep.
of the world grows
Yeah.
and science and just opens our eyes to more possibilities and and we get more and more into the molecular, you know, level of things to really understand how things are working there.
Yeah.
The new truths come out of old truths because we just had a limited understanding.
Yeah.
Before.
You got to plant your flag somewhere to start.
Right.
I mean,
exactly, yeah.
Build
I always think of that when watching like dinosaur shows or something. And it's like, how did you know? I mean, if that was 150 million years ago and you found one bone and you
Right.
said, oh, well, it's this big and it did this. And
how'd
it
you
had
know the
all these
color?
Yeah,
That's
it's
always my
exactly. How'd
It
you
was
know what
blue.
the skin looked like and everything? It's like, come on.
Yeah.
This is how it growled. And it's like,
Yeah.
no idea.
That being said, though, I mean, there is like something to be said. There's like this attack on experts now, I feel like post COVID, and a lot of it is legitimate. There should be a lot of experts that should be disbarred. But like at the same time, like I was having a debate with a young woman a number of months ago, and she was explaining to me how she like was reading this like double-blind placebo vaccine study, and she was like, you know, critically analyzing all these statistics and everything. And I'm like, listening to her, and like what she says is making no sense at all. Like no sense at all. I have a deep background in statistics. I really understand this stuff. Like, I'm sorry, it made no sense. And she's like, that's why I'm not vaccinating my kids. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like, this really is like in the flesh of like, you know, you're coming across people and you're like, look, we can have a conversation around vaccines. I don't want to get into all that, but like, you know, similar things with AI. It's like, well, what does it mean to be true? And it's like, if the AI just spits it out, it's like, it learned that somewhere, right?
Right.
Where did it learn that from? Did it learn it from Wikipedia? A lot of it is. Like, we can go Wikipedia tonight. I used to edit Wikipedia, and then I stopped because people were changing things that I knew to be true. And they were like, that's not true. And I'm like, okay. All right, you all go, okay. Sounds good. Yeah.
Well, and going back to the masses think this way doesn't
Yeah.
always mean it's the truth.
No. Yeah.
That's why we have those outliers.
Yeah. But, you know.
Are you guys seeing this at all with either coworkers or friends or family? Lower AI adoption or reluctance to adopt AI because they do question the results and whether or not it's accurate. And I've run into this where, and these are really bright people, and they're in their own areas. They kill it, but they are. And I'm trying to get everybody I know to adopt AI.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And they're hesitant because, yeah, I tried it, but it was a little bit off in this one area, so it's not right. And I wouldn't want to put that in front of a client or, you know, whatever it is. And I'm like, well, but if you Googled it and you trusted the first result, kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier, so you trust that more than you trust GPT or Gemini or whatever. Are you guys seeing where people are hesitant? We're talking a lot about truth right now, and in fact, like where there's a hesitancy to use it because they don't necessarily trust. You're seeing it.
I
too.
see it all the time. A lot of people I talk to, I would say probably the majority of people I talk to about AI that are trying to understand it, we're like, yeah, I used it once and it didn't give me the right answer, to your point.
Right.
And they just throw the baby out with the bathwater. And it's like, well, it just doesn't work. And it doesn't work for me. And it's like, no, it knows how to do it. You just have to ask it correctly. It might take more than one or two tries to do it. Just like if you're talking to a person and ask them one question, they give you an answer and you go, well, that wasn't the right answer, so that's it. No, you keep refining that question.
Yeah.
So they fully understand. And that's why it's so people-based, at least for like the Claudes and the Chat GPTs and stuff, it's so people-based. You know, it's so conversational, treat it like a person, keep refining, keep asking, keep going.
Yeah.
To now, when do you have the right answer? When you don't know what the answer is.
Yeah.
I'm not sure there, but to your point, it's like, yeah, people don't want to use it because, well, I tried it once and it just didn't do it.
Yeah.
And it's like,
something I asked this question myself. My grandfather taught me this one, as compared to what? And you it can kind of guide you in the world. And it really came to mind with what you just said, is like, as compared to like a junior dev or a junior person right out of undergrad, like, they don't know anything either. They don't know anything about anything. Right. I mean, of course, they'll tell you they know everything about everything. But, looking back at myself, I knew nothing about nothing. And so, it's kind of like if you treat it like that, you're like, oh, this is totally different, right? And you're able to kind of use it for what it's good for. And then, that's the human judgment part of it. That's the responsibility. It's just, it's like any other tool, I think, in many ways.
What do you think creatively, you were talking about how creatively it can help and not help? Like when it comes down to, I mean, let's take as creative as you can get, like artwork made in using AI. I'm not talking about like the meme artwork that I have of myself with like Alec Baldwin and stuff like that, or me, as a giraffe or something. I'm talking about like real.
I want to see that one.
Yeah. Put it in the show notes.
But
I'd like to see that.
But I'm talking about like, there's a big debate about, and this went way back to when Photoshop came out, that is art that's created by Photoshop real art?
Right.
And now the same debate's coming out again, where is art that's being generated, like true art again, being generated by AI, is that really art?
Well, it goes way back before Photoshop, even Picasso.
Sure.
Picasso was kind of in that era, and I'm not an art historian, but from my reading of it that was right when cameras were coming out. And so people were like, why do we need artists anymore? And if you look at like Picasso's early work, you're like, I mean, people now, they're like, oh, it's just like fat people and weird stuff. But then like, if you look at before that, it's like, no, bro could paint really well. And then something happened and it was like, well, no, he started doing like real art. So like, what is that? I think to your question, it kind of begs the question of like, well, what is art?
Yeah.
Is the real question there. Yeah. I don't know the answer to that.
When we walked into the studio this morning, Lauren had this image on the TV out in the lobby. And I would have never thought this, maybe even a year, or definitely 2 years ago, I wouldn't have. I was like, did a person create that, or is that AI created? It was very intricate. It was very cool, very trippy.
Yeah.
And it was, I loved it. But now we live in a time where I'm like, was that a human, or did somebody just put a quick prompt into AI and come up with that? For me, I'm really glad you brought this up. I think this is a really cool topic. I think art, for it to be, because I think when it comes to is it art? I think it's more like, is the art valuable to someone?
Yep.
And I think art that is generated by a human is going to always be more valuable than art that's created by an AI. But I think it's going to be like what we're talking about with schoolwork, where you have to be able to explain your answer. I think art in the future is going to be the same way, to demonstrate, like, is there a video of the artist creating this art? And then it's more valuable when you buy it, because you know that a human made it and you know what went into it, and that artist could be explaining the story of how they arrived at why they even wanted to create this piece in the first place, versus just some Homer like me just goofing around and doing goofy stuff. And well, that's cool. Yeah. So I think there's the value part of it. Like if you're selling your art or whatever, like I feel bad for artists who like that's their living, but I think there's still a way for them to demonstrate that they handcrafted that art, or even if they made it in Photoshop, if you show the process and the actual work went into it and the story behind it, I think that's what brings the value versus just a couple of clicks and a prompt.
I agree to a certain extent. I think it's, because you're looking at it too from the artist perspective of them building something and then someone finding value. And I 100% agree with that. But the other way I see it too is, even if it was 100% generated by a computer, is it something that I desire? Is it something that I put value in? Well, then to me, I like it, there's value to it at least. Is it art? Is it not? Well, to me it is. If I'm going to hang it on the wall, or if I'm going to hold that closer to me to go, I really like this piece. It really says something. I can it for me, it gives me some sort of an expression to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The personal, I guess, yeah, the difference between personal value and external value. I was talking about more like external, but personal value, yeah. Like recently, somebody sent me a picture of my daughter at a track meet. It was a really cool picture. She's at the start line before a race. And I looked at that. I'm like, oh, I could use AI. I could remove the background, put her in an Olympic stadium and put "just do it" with the swoosh on it. It was fucking cool.
Yeah.
Very valuable to me.
Sure.
Besides, my wife and my daughter, nobody else is going to think it's that cool. So there's value in that.
Yeah.
I never in a million years would have done that even with Photoshop.
Yeah.
Because I'm not a Photoshop person. I don't know how to use it. But I could do that with ChatGPT, and that was cool.
Yeah. I think for me, so I've started a couple different companies with different people, and like one of the things you always have is like a logo, right? And I've always hired a designer of some type. Usually costs about $1,000. They come up with the color, scheme. It's like a palette of 5-7 colors, and a couple logos and some text with the name, right? Like I said, I think it costs usually $1,000-$1,200, somewhere in that range, right? If I'm going to start a new company, I'm definitely going to be doing that again, just because the process of working with that person, they really kind of capture the essence of what we were trying to do. But I would have never hired a graphic designer to put like the banner on like a blog post.
Right.
But now I use AI to do that. So I think it's a little bit of a thing too of like the market is expanding in some ways that allow for more cool art, whatever you want to call it. That like, I would have just posted it with some picture I hiked off Google, right? That was like kind of what I was trying to do. But, so I don't know. I'm not sure it's like always all one thing or all another thing. But I will say if I was an artist right now, I would be trying to learn how to use these tools to lever up as quickly as possible.
Yes.
I would not be not worrying about it just because, if you're trying to do something sophisticated and there's a lot of meaning behind it, that's awesome. But like if somebody can pound out the rough pencil sketch of it quicker than you, and then you do the fine tuning or whatever. But so I don't know. I'm not sure. I think we're still figuring out.
It's got to be helping in some ways, right? Like if you can turn out more content because you're leveraging these tools, then you can sell more or you can serve more clients. So in theory, maybe you can actually improve, create more revenue using these tools versus less.
Well, if you're using it as a tool, like we've always said, it's not the end all be all. It's a tool in your process that speeds up many steps in your process.
Yeah. Well, and maybe it could be like, people always point to these in the like, I gotcha, aha moment, like in debates of like, well, economics 101 shows that this is clearly like free trade is clearly the best way, period. Stop talking. And you're like, okay, but like, that's like often like at infinity or in continuous, right? So like, I'll give you an example of like everyone like Barnes and Noble, Borders Books, all these bookstores were just like getting crushed by like Amazon, right? Well, they just built a new one, like a mile from my house, a new Barnes and Noble. So it's like, okay, well, maybe there's just like some, kind of perturbations in the system or that need to get worked out for what's really, how is this going to change the art world?
Right.
I don't know.
Interesting. All right, gentlemen, we got to wrap this up. I think we solved a lot of the world's problems in this podcast.
Absolutely.
It's always fun. Yeah.
Alex, it's always fun to have you on here, man.
Thank you, Drew.
I always appreciate it. Any final words, Pete?
Thank you, Drew, for being on here too. I appreciate
no
you.
No problem, buddy.
Yeah. No, I appreciate you guys doing this. I've listened to, I think, all of the podcasts but one, and I just really enjoy having a space like this.
That's who's listening.
Also your guys' your meetup, West Michigan AI Lab, I think is great. So
appreciate you supporting that.
I'll plug it for you. I'll plug it for you because I really do enjoy it. I've been to many of them, and I think they're great. So
thanks, man.
And before we leave, because we didn't start with it, thank you, Studio Jefferson. Thank you, Think Tank Leadership. Think Tank Thought Leadership.
Think Tank Thought Leadership.
We could not have done this without you guys for producing this and distributing it, and just the pep talks that we get actually too of going into this. So big shout out to them.
Awesome.
Studio Jefferson, Think Tank are great. I agree.
Thanks, guys. If you want to know more, like and subscribe. Thank you.